And long story short, again, looking back, I didn't know why the cannabis was helping me. I just knew that when I smoked, I felt better. I didn't question why, I just did it. And that's not a very medicinal approach either. So, moving forward to what I know now, there's another compound in cannabis that's not related to THC. It doesn't get you high. It's not like that classic intoxicating compound. CBD is, I call it, nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory. And that's present in all types of cannabis. And so without realizing it, when I was using that plant, I was ingesting the CBD, which was reducing the inflammation in my basal ganglia and helping me to feel better.
Pompeo is an entrepreneur. He became one out of necessity. For years, he suffered with misdiagnosed neurological issues. He was on up to 40 medications. The only time he had any relief was when he smoked marijuana. But he didn't want to get high. He wanted to get well. So he went on a quest. And what he found was that the CBD component of the hemp plant provided relief without getting him high. One thing led to another, and today he's building a brand new manufacturing facility in Virginia for his growing CBD business. This is a great story. It's about stepping beyond traditional medicine for real answers, taking charge of your own health, and most of all, it's a story about giving back. Ethan, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Pat. It was a normal kid by all standards up until the age of 13, when I started to all of a sudden have debilitating neurological symptoms, namely motor tics, so twitches, compulsions, loss of motor function, obsessive-compulsive disorder, anxiety, just all kinds of issues related to we didn't know what. And I went to probably 30 different doctors, was on more than 40 different prescription meds by the time I was 17. And it was just a long journey to figure out, one, what was wrong, and two, how to fix it. Long story short, these health issues that popped up in my early teenage years really wrecked my health mentally and physically and put me in a place where I was just uncomfortable being myself. I like to keep everything internally. I didn't like to talk about what was happening. I wanted to pretend like everything was fine when it wasn't. And it was really catastrophic to my life and my family life as well. So that's what I'd like to talk to you about today.
So first of all, I have to ask you, how did you unravel 40 medications?
Oh gosh. Well, it was, my first trip to the neurologist or the psychiatrist. We spent all of 5 minutes in his office, right? He looked at me, he said, "Oh yeah, I see you have these twitches, these tics. It's a classic case of Tourette syndrome. We're going to give you this off-label blood pressure medication that's been known to sometimes help reduce twitches and tremors." And off we went. And I was labeled and misdiagnosed with Tourette syndrome on that initial doctor visit, which really told me nothing. We don't know what causes it. We don't know how to cure it. Right? It's like, oh, you have Tourette syndrome. Great. Like, what does that mean for me? And it was almost like an excuse to prescribe medication to me at the will of whatever doctor we were seeing at the time. So, when that first medication didn't work, we tried it for a few months. No change, no difference, nothing at all, good or bad. And so we went to see another doctor and another doctor and another doctor. And the protocol was always the same, right? Let's throw these medication cocktails at him, see if anything works. If it doesn't, we'll increase the dose. If he feels terrible, we'll stop and try something else. And many of the side effects of these medications outweighed any benefits I felt, if any. And I remember just feeling like a zombie at times, like feeling doped up and medicated at the risk of having these tics and these symptoms. I was feeling terrible. I remember in my 9th grade math class, my teacher called my parents at one point and said, I think your child is on drugs. He's falling asleep at his desk. Like,
You were on drugs.
and that's exactly what I said. I am on drugs. Like, these pills are making me feel terrible. And so not only that, but we really didn't have a clear way forward, right? That the protocol here was like, find a pill that works and then take it for the rest of your life. Like, there was no identifying the root cause. There was no legitimate treatment or cure, or like clean up your diet and exercise and do things that are good for your health. It was like, let's find a miracle pill, which doesn't exist, and just give it to you indefinitely. And to me, that is not how medicine should work. And it was not a good path forward for me at all.
So what happened?
Well, in terms of finding something that worked,
Yeah, I'm really curious. I have also been through some neurologic problems. That's a separate story. But I hear you. I mean, they give you one med, then they give you another med to counteract that med,
yeah.
and it's just an impossible situation. So I'm really curious. How you did you wean yourself off these medications, or how did you find a path forward?
Yeah, eventually I just hit this tipping point where it was like, enough's enough. I'm getting nowhere with this. Like 40 different meds as a teenager. It was just not something that I wanted to continue doing. I had physician fatigue. I was sick of going to doctor's offices. I was sick of pharmacies. I was sick of cutting the pills in half and all this stuff. And I just wanted to, at that point, I was ready to just grit it out and just deal with my symptoms because nothing seemed to be working. So when that happened, I told my parents, look, I don't want to keep doing this anymore. Like, I haven't found something that works, but I'm not going to do this anymore. And we had been researching, we had been doing everything we could to learn more about what was going on and what was happening. And eventually we stumbled upon this term pandas. And it's not that cuddly bamboo munching creature that we all are familiar with. Turns out pandas is an autoimmune condition caused by a strep throat infection. It's
Really?
pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with strep. It's a mouthful. Basically, what it means is a strep throat infection, or sometimes other infection, causes an unusual autoimmune response in the body, namely excess production of antibodies. So for me, looking at our blood work, my strep antibodies were off the charts. I mean, just immeasurably high. And that was a big indicator that I'd been fighting off this strep throat infection for a long, long time. And it went unaddressed. I was never on antibiotics for it. It's almost counterintuitive to put a bacterial infection in the same category as like these neurological issues and these tics and these mental health challenges that I was facing. So it was a long journey to figure this out, but eventually that's the diagnosis I got, was pandas. And what it did for me was not usher in like this whole new paradigm of medication and stuff like that, but it actually gave me some clues, some very important clues. What was causing my issue? A strep throat infection, right? That was causing inflammation in my
Mhm,
brain. It's called encephalitis. And when
mhm.
that occurs in the basal ganglia, which is the motor cortex of your body, you're plagued with all these symptoms that I'm talking about: loss of motor function, tics, severe anxiety. I had anger associated with my symptoms and not knowing what was wrong with me. All these things that just compiled on like typical teenage angst that you feel during that
Well,
age.
listen, being a teenager is so hard. I can't imagine having to go through that as a teenager.
Mm. It was very disrupting. And one thing that's very interesting about pandas is the immediate onset. That's very characteristic of pandas. I mean, literally, you go to sleep healthy and normal, and you wake up the next morning and you have these twitches and tics. And, your parents are like, where's this coming from? And at first, you brush it off like, oh, it's just him doing something weird as a 13-year-old. But then they compounded and they started getting worse, and new tics started popping up, and everything got worse and worse to the point where I couldn't even pick up a fork without putting it down, picking it up, putting it down, picking it up until it felt just right. And oftentimes I'd have to do it over and over and over again to the point where I'd get so frustrated and annoyed, I'd that object would just end up sailing across the room, putting a hole in the wall. And I joked that I got very good at drywall repair as a teenager because of all those encounters, right? All those, man, it was not fun. I'll put it that way. But getting the pandas diagnosis was really an answered prayer because it gave me a clear path forward. Like now we know in order to start on our healing journey, we have to identify and nick the strep infection. So that was generally long course antibiotics to get rid of the strep bacteria in your body. And then addressing the inflammation, right? Because the inflammation is what's actually causing the symptoms. It's that problem in your brain, the encephalitis, that's driving all these unusual behaviors. So then it was, how do we address the inflammation, reduce inflammation in your body? And at first I was prescribed steroid medication for that, which did help, but also came with its own side effects. And
Hmm.
so I realized, I need to take my health into my own hands at this point. Once we got the pandas diagnosis, it was like, all right, I know what's going on. I understand how to move forward with this. And then I started to think, what are some things I can do in my life that are naturally anti inflammatory that will help me feel better without having to rely on medication? And I'll tell you another thing, during that transition time we talked about where I was like sick of medication, I didn't want to take it anymore. That was around the same time where I had started experimenting with cannabis and smoking marijuana with my buddies in high school. And I will tell you, without condoning illicit marijuana use, it was the only thing I found that gave me relief. I knew that when I smoked, I would feel better. My tics and anxiety would go down. I would be able to take a deep breath and just calm down and refocus. And it was the only thing I had, the only tool I had that could help me feel better for a little while. And so I just succumbed to that and really relied on that heavily for many years until the side effects of that caught up with me as well. I started, at a certain point, it started increasing my anxiety. I started having breathing issues. I had numerous run ins with the law here in Virginia because what I was using was illegal. And to add insult to injury, right, the only tool in my arsenal that I could use to feel better, I was trying to use it medicinally. Whether or not I actually was is anyone's guess, but, I got arrested for it. It's like, man, I can go to the doctor and get these narcotic pills prescribed to me and take them as much as I want, but I can't like use this natural plant that's actually helping me. It was very, very frustrating. And, I come from a very conservative family. My parents had busted me, I don't know how many times. They were totally anti pot. And it was very difficult. It caused a lot of turmoil in my family life as well. And yeah, long story short, again, looking back, I didn't know why the cannabis was helping me. I just knew that when I smoked, I felt better. I didn't question why, I just did it. And that's not a very medicinal approach either. So, moving forward to what I know now, there's another compound in cannabis that's not related to THC. It doesn't get you high. It's not like that classic intoxicating compound. CBD is, I call it, nature's most powerful anti inflammatory. And that's present in all types of cannabis. And so, without realizing it, when I was using that plant, I was ingesting the CBD, which was reducing the inflammation in my basal ganglia and helping me to feel better. Getting high was more or less a side effect of that use, which again, I don't use it to this day. I don't smoke anymore at all. I don't take any prescription medications. I live a very holistic, healthy lifestyle. And CBD, I think, was the catalyst for that and getting my mind and body into a place where I could really take a deep breath, refocus, recenter, and think, what are some things that I can do to feel better?
We were talking before we went on about the fact that you're building a new facility for manufacturing CBD oil. Can you talk about a little bit about the manufacturing process, how you separate the different compounds, and then what you can do with them?
Yeah, it's a great question, and a lot of people are intrigued with what I'm doing. I might preface that by saying, I didn't intend to create a CBD manufacturing company. It was simply something that I was using for my own medicinal benefit. But once I realized what CBD was and how it was helping me, it completely changed my life. And I started experimenting with it. I started manufacturing different oils and gummies and topical products and brownies and just putting CBD in everything and seeing what worked for me, trying different concentrations and different doses and different applications. And all this was happening in like the extra bedroom of the house I was living in. And, I would put it on Snapchat and stuff like that. And people took interest. All of a sudden, like the least likely candidates started asking me about it. Like, grandma wanted some help with sleeping. She wanted some anxiety relief and she wanted to sleep better, and CBD has been shown to help with natural sleep and clearing your mind, right, reducing anxiety. There's many clinical trials that have shown how CBD can reduce anxiety naturally. Grandpa wanted some pain relief for his achy joints and knees, and so he wanted to try rubbing it into his knees, and all because it's not marijuana. It's not an intoxicating compound. There's THC, which is like the notorious compound that gets you high, and then there's CBD, which is not psychoactive at all. It's safe for everybody. There's no risk of failing a drug screening or getting high or anything like that. So I saw this big opportunity where this was back in 2015. No one had ever heard of CBD before. And when I started presenting this as something that was helping me tremendously and had the potential to help many other people, people took interest. And so I started giving it away and giving it to my friends and my family members here and there. And, we got great feedback. And all of a sudden I realized, man, there's a real opportunity to help people here. And so I started Green Valley Nutrition with that in mind. Fast forward to today, we're building out a new facility as we speak. It's a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility. We actually take the raw hemp, which is grown from organic farmers here in Virginia, local to me. We extract the oil out of the plant material using supercritical carbon dioxide extraction systems. So it's a solventless system, just using CO2 gas. And then we further distill that down into pure CBD. So when people ask, how do you get rid of the THC? Well, it's not that we really get rid of THC and other compounds. It's that we're extracting the CBD and leaving everything else behind. So all of my products are 100% THC free. So again, no risk of getting high. This is something that's safe for everyone, sensitive health groups, children, pets. Like people give this to their dogs for the same benefits. So it's just amazing. And, now we're shipping products to all 50 states and even internationally. And just it's touched thousands of people's lives. And it's just really tremendous to see like how my biggest pain point ended up becoming something that not only supports my family, but is helping thousands of other people to live better and improve their quality of life. So it's just amazing.
Now, I have to bring up this question since you brought up the police earlier, and that is, where do you get your product from? I mean, do you have marijuana farms that send you their product? I mean, and forgive me, I'm a little less than knowledgeable, but is hemp the actual marijuana plant?
So it's like a Chihuahua and a Great Dane. They're
Okay.
both dogs, but they
Hmm.
hardly resemble each other, and they're bred for completely different purposes, right? The same with hemp and marijuana. They're both cannabis sativa, is the scientific nomenclature. They're the same species, the same plant. However, over years and years, we have bred these plants to have different properties. So marijuana has been genetically selected, not modified, but selected over the years for high THC. Uh, you know,
Okay.
People who buy that at dispensaries want very high THC so they can have that euphoria that they're looking for. With hemp, it's been raised for other properties, mainly textile production. So hemp is very, very fibrous, and it's great for creating clothing and rope and building materials. It also is rich in CBD. So the hemp that I use, the government has come up with this criteria where if it's below 0.3% THC, it's hemp. And if it's above 0.3% THC, it's marijuana. So that's kind of the determinant that distinguishes the two plants. So what I'm using to make my products is almost absent of THC, very, very minimal THC, upwards of 10% CBD. So it's rich in that CBD that we're looking for to make all of our medicinal products.
Once you extract that, do you put it into some sort of oil base or a lotion base? What do you do next?
So once it's extracted, we distill it down into a very it's a crystallized form. Basically, it's like a white powder. It almost looks like bleached flour, if you will. It's very finely ground so that it readily dissolves and absorbs into whatever product we're creating. So from there, these samples test it over 99% pure CBD. So it's very, very pure. We're third party lab testing all of our materials for all kinds of contaminants, pesticides, mildews, bacterial formations, residual solvents, heavy metals, any toxins, and of course THC. We want it to be completely free. So again, we're starting with a very high quality product, an organically grown local source. I personally go out to the farms that we work with to see how they're doing things, and if our goals line up, they can become a great partner for us. So when we source this material, the end product that we get is almost 100% pure CBD. And from there, that's the active ingredient that we use to make all of our products. So this goes into, yes, lotions, oils for topical use, oils for oral tinctures, like a sublingual drop that goes under your tongue and gets to work very fast. We have gummies, we have soft gels, we have dog treats, bath and spa products. Kind of something for everybody.
Are they mostly oriented towards pain and anxiety, and are there different formulations for each of those?
There are, yes. So our top three categories are pain, anxiety, and sleep, because these are three needs that just plague our society, right? So many people struggle with sleep and chronic pain and stress and anxiety, especially today. And so here's, an organic, all natural, plant-based product that has virtually no side effects. It's a fantastic alternative to all these medications that people are pushing. And I'm not anti-medication, right? I believe it has its purpose. But in my experience, having all these medications just thrown at me to see what's stuck, that's not a very medicinal approach. So if you can identify the source of your pain, like what's causing this, am I having trouble sleeping because I'm up at night worrying about the next day and I'm super anxious? Like if you can use this CBD as a tool to help reduce your anxiety, chances are you're going to sleep better naturally. We do have other products. There are over 30 different medicinal compounds in cannabis. CBD and THC are just the two most well known. There's also CBN, which has been shown to have powerful natural sedative qualities. So CBN is fantastic for assisting with sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have family members who struggle to stay asleep at night. So they'll fall asleep fine, but they'll wake up at 2, 3 in the morning and can't go back to sleep. So I'll give them my drops, and they put the CBN drops under their tongue, and it just helps them wind down and go back to sleep when they're having trouble at night. There's also CBG, which has mood and focus support properties. It was interesting during the whole COVID pandemic. It was also researched and shown to have antiviral properties. So it was actually, off the record, it's could be a potential option for helping reduce like risk of infection for COVID and other things too. And we're still kind of scratching the surface as far as what we know about these compounds. They've been around for over 60 years. I mean, Israeli scientists first isolated these compounds that we're talking about in the early 60s. And yet today, they've been ostracized and really ignored by big pharma for a long, long time. So unfortunately, we don't know as much as we should about these compounds. But CBD has been probably the most studied, and we do have clinical trial data on that. In fact, right now, I'm working with the University of Virginia Health Center on our own clinical trial where we're looking at oral CBD for chronic pain management. I'm working with the osteopathic surgeon at University of Virginia to try to see, hey, is this a valid alternative to opiates and other addictive pain medication? Because how awesome would that be, right? If we could like avoid opiates and other dangerous prescriptions in lieu of giving them like a CBD soft gel. I just think that would be so great.
Oh, it'd be amazing. Do you think the mainstream medical professionals will adapt something like that, or do you think you're going to run into a little hesitancy?
Well, a little of both. I will say more and more doctors are recommending our products, which is fantastic. I just had a woman call me last week and said, hey, our functional medicine doctor has recommended you guys to us. And I love that. I think functional medicine is more apt to recommend this, but we are seeing more mainstream medical professionals looking to CBD as a valid option because they're seeing that it works. We do have clinical data on this. We do have some empirical evidence to show that it helps and it works for some applications, but a lot of what we know is just anecdotal. And you can go to my website. We have thousands of reviews of people who are just praising this product. Like, I had pain for 30 years. I was on opiates for 25 years. Nothing was really helping with my pain. And then I tried your cream. Now I rub it into my arm every morning and every night, and like the pain goes away, and I'm like playing baseball again, or whatever it may be. So there's these incredible testimonials that, quite frankly, keep me doing what I'm doing because running a business is very, very hard. And especially when you have like health setbacks, right? I like to consider myself 90% cured. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you today without any tics or anxiety or anything like that. But I have my moments, and it still affects and impacts my life to some extent. But the lifestyle changes I've made, right, taking CBD, but also changing my diet, eating an anti-inflammatory diet, getting an exercise routine, weightlifting, just improving my physique, adding muscle mass, which acts as a sink for inflammatory compounds, um, reducing stressors, eliminating negativity and negative people from my life where I can. All these things have had a tremendous impact on my body, mind, spirit in general. And that's what I recommend to everybody. I mentioned earlier, like, there is no miracle pill. I don't say CBD is a miracle pill. I think it can be an amazing option for people who have tried everything and nothing works. Like, CBD can often help. But I also say, like, don't expect this to like take this and have all your problems magically go away. It does take some work on your part to make the changes necessary to live well and improve your health, and so forth. So I'm an advocate for lifestyle change, holistic lifestyle change and wellness, in addition to leveraging the tools that we have available to us to feel better.
Did you ever run into Dean Ornish's study on men with prostate cancer and the impact of lifestyle change?
I'm very familiar with Dean. Yes.
Yeah.
You might talk a little bit more about that.
Well, it's a terrific study in that it took a group of men with prostate cancer and it divided them into two groups. One group essentially went to lifestyle boot camp, and one group did
Mm.
not. The group that went to lifestyle boot camp had a focus on, I believe, four factors. Let me see if I can remember them. Probably healthy eating. I know one was stress management. One was communication within their group
Mm.
to create community. And help me out with the other one. Well, the four tenets of real health. Oh,
Maybe
stress
some
management.
exercise, right?
Stress management. They had to do something active for stress management.
Yeah.
The group that went to lifestyle boot camp did not need any further interventions, and their
Hmm.
PSA levels dropped considerably. I don't remember the exact percentages, but the group that did not go to lifestyle boot camp had required numerous interventions and did not do very well.
Mm.
And that's kind of the essence of the study. It was done back around 2007 or 2009. And Dean Ornish, being a strict scientist, will not apply these outcomes to any other avenues of health. But personally, I think the results of that trial and that paper are astonishing. And they absolutely point to the fact that if we can start managing our diet, our health, our weight, the food we consume, and all these other
Mm.
variables that go into holistic health, it can make a very significant difference for us.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, even taken individually, we see the impact of these lifestyle changes. I'm thinking of another trial where they took two groups of patients with terminal cancer, and basically they pitted one group that didn't have a community and against one that did have community. They went to group outreach and counseling and like groupthink classes where they could commiserate and talk to each other and encourage each other. And the group that had the community survived. It was 50% greater survival rate than those who didn't. And that was the only thing they changed, to my knowledge. And so you think, like, how powerful is that, having a community connection, people that you can rely on and confide in and talk to and encourage one another? Just having that social interaction is so powerful. And then you couple that with eating right, like fueling your body with the appropriate building blocks you need for health,
Exercise.
exercising, yeah, and then finding ways to reduce stress, which stress is a killer. all four of those things put together, like your chances are so much greater. And that's exactly what I did in my own life. Like those four pillars that you mentioned, that's exactly what I did to heal. And this is from, going from a diagnosis of Tourette's syndrome, which has no known cure, to, I have an amazing life now. I have a wonderful wife, four kids. I'm running a business. Like, life isn't perfect, but it's great. So I'm very blessed.
Any words of wisdom for anybody facing something so difficult? I mean, I did you find a community really to connect to when you were going through all this?
No, it was tough at the time. This was so I'll be 33 this year. So I've been dealing with this for 20 years, and things have dramatically changed. When I was first learning about pandas and battling this very it was very challenging for me as a young adult. I didn't have really anybody I could talk to other than like a counselor or a therapist. And I did find a therapist that was instrumental, and who finally listened to me. I felt like she understood me, and that was very helpful. But we don't have any of the like Facebook community groups or advocacy initiatives or
Mhm.
research panels that we do now. I'm very involved in the Pandas Network. There's many groups that I'm involved with now. Every spring, we have a 5K fundraiser with the Alex Manful Foundation that I'm a part of, where we raise six figures for research and advocacy for the pandas. For pandas, so we're learning how to better treat it. We're arming doctors with the knowledge they need and the resources they need to identify it and properly treat it, so that people don't have to go through what I went through for 10, 15 years without finding answers. Like, it's amazing now how much easier it is to get a pandas diagnosis, or just to type in "my kid has tics" online and find this answer, find this pandas thing. Because when I started having my issues, no one had ever heard of it. I mean, if I had brought it up, the doctor would have said I'm crazy. That's not real. And so things have really changed in part because of the advocacy that we've done. Um, but I will say, like, right now there's a new organization. It's the National Youth Pandas Alliance, and it's a bunch of high school and college age individuals who have put together this advocacy group, where I just think it's amazing. I've come on board with them as basically an advocate and an advisor because I'm a little bit older, but at the same time, like, I know what it's like to live through this as a child and a young adult. And a lot of people my age cannot relate to that. So another thing about pandas, it's considered a pediatric diagnosis. That's the P in pandas. So most of the time, the kids who are getting diagnosed with this are anywhere from 5 to 12 years old. 13 is almost like the upper level of diagnosis. Typically, this is much younger kids who are getting diagnosed with this. So for me to be struck with this, like around the age where I'm entering high school, it was especially disruptive and difficult, I feel like. And now it's wonderful, like how much easier it is to get appropriate treatment now. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing this work, because it's really making a difference in helping people.
What words of wisdom would you have for somebody facing any sort of neurological disease, particularly because it can be so hard to diagnose? What would you say to them? And what would you say to them in terms of getting through it in a positive way?
Yeah, I typically advise, like, don't give up, first of all, because it's really easy to kind of just place yourself in the lap of the experts, quote unquote, right? We expect the doctors and the physicians to have all the answers, right? They're our front line of defense for health issues. So I know that was my position. My parents and we kind of leaned to our doctors, like, for all the answers. And in my mind at the time, it was like, man, if my doctor doesn't know what's wrong with me, if he doesn't know how to fix this, like, who will? And for many years, I just gave up and said, this is how I'm going to be. I'm just going to do what I know works and not worry about the health consequences of it. And that's not a good place to be, right? I really empowered myself by jumping into this and figuring out, like, what works for me. Why does it work? How can I implement these changes into my life in order to feel better? And it wasn't an overnight change. right?
Mm.
It took years to really get in these habits, instill these habits in my life, get away from all the inflammatory issues, get away from smoking all the time, and all these habits that were bad for me, and shift into a holistic, healthy lifestyle. But once you do that, oh man, it you will notice a difference. And so I always tell people, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on those who are trying to help you. Like, there is a path to healing. You just have to commit to it and really go wholeheartedly into it and find those things that will work for you. Because that was my experience, right? I was told, you're going to have this for the rest of your life, and it's just not true.